friends.
Oh, we could rather do that. I do. Do you?
I do.
Just moved to town, a regular husband and wife.
This place. I don't understand what's happening.
Look, it's the star of the show.
I'm sorry?
Wanda, can you read me?
And they lived happily ever after.
WandaVision. Oh, this is gonna be a gas.
You like that intro?
Look. That trailer was about. Well, hold up, because this is a spoiler review, but we're only spoiling the first two
episodes. Okay, yes. So, full disclaimer for all you guys: we have already seen the first 3 episodes of this show. So, we will have some opinions that you guys probably won't quite understand, but know that it comes from a really good place.
And no, we won't say or mention anything in episode 3.
Can't do it.
Won't come close to it. We are focusing on these 2 first episodes, and where we perceive it could have gone, even though we kind of know where it's going to go after that, but just the perception of the first 2 episodes of WandaVision. I hate that so much. Oh man.
All right, so let's go ahead and just dive in really quick. Really small, introduction. This initially so let's go from Infinity War. Infinity War, we know for a fact that Vision was incapacitated because your boy Thanos snatched the Godstone stone out of his forehead. Now, before that happened, Wanda effectively killed Vision by destroying the stone. Thanos reversed time, snatched it out of his head. All this to say that I think that Shuri was trying to possibly recreate it in some kind of way so that he could be able to be sustainable. So we always felt like there was an opening for him to still live. But we get to Endgame, I think that Thanos still had the stone. They all still had the stone and everything. Yep. And Thanos was coming for everybody's neck. Wanda came back from the dead, and she put a hurting on Thanos, but her love was still gone. Now, they never said what happened to Vision's body. They never said whether or not they were going to do anything about the stone. They never alluded whether or not Shuri had the capability of bringing him back to life. There's a lot of variables we really just don't know. And we don't know what point this takes place. We just know this is after Endgame as far as what we know. The opening of the first episode, what would you say it was more reminiscent of, like I Dream of Jeannie or Bewitched? I feel like the second episode was more Bewitched. First episode was like I'm Dream of Jeannie personally.
All of it is a blur of the 50s sitcoms. Look, I understand why they're attempting to do something different, but it wasn't interesting. But to answer your question, the first episode still reminded me of the early episodes. I want to say, is it Bewitched before they switched the father out? If I'm not mistaken. Like the second episode is a later episodes of Bewitched.
Yeah, it was definitely like amalgam. The first episode was like amalgam of Bewitched and I Love Lucy.
Oh, definitely.
It's more along the lines of I Love Lucy. To me, it was campy. I mean, I don't know other way.
That's the best way to put it, huh? Campy. That is the best way to put it.
It played to the strengths of keeping to that era piece from their wardrobe, from the different like crowd, like ramping up these terrible jokes. And I think that both actors committed to it. The reason why I can say that they definitely committed to it is when you start to see them going through the different eras and how they have to play the characters completely differently. So I give them credit for making sure it's authentic and as campy as the era that it was. I think that from what I've understood from a lot of different people, they definitely had fun with it. Like I'm talking about people that viewed it or whatever. Like most people said that it was kind of fun. Some people I knew was like, man, that was boring as a mug. Where are we gonna get to the third, episode? When we get to the color, you know what I'm saying? But for me personally, I kind of knew what I was getting into. And it was just more so I'm sitting there trying to figure out what is going on. I think that was the thing that kind of kept me a little bit intrigued and entertained more than anything else. Specifically in the first episode when it came to the first commercial. I think the first commercial, it was, I don't even know what the flip it was, what it was actually the commercial of, but I knew it alluded to Stark technology. I don't know if it was that radio. Was it? Yes, it was. It was the toaster. Because the toaster, it started like blinking red. And I was like, that's the first color that we actually saw the entire episode. And I was like, what the heck is this? But anyway, what did you think about the first episode as much as you can kind of compact? I can tell you what my favorite thing is, but we ain't got there yet. So
yeah, it was boring. That's the best way to put it. It was boring. It was extremely boring. You see from the beginning that they're attempting to put little clues into what could be happening in these episodes, especially the first one. But it takes a lot of faith and a lot of you having to care about past stuff in the MCU to even enjoy this show. This is not something you could just jump into and say, hey, I'm going to watch this show. Because the biggest part, especially of the first episode, was just the little Easter eggs that they're attempting to drop in to draw your attention to a bigger story.
Yeah.
As it pertains to the 50s vibe that they were setting, I understand people are loving the retro thing and they are loving like reliving certain moments. But no, it reminded me of a bad 50s show. Like every show in the 50s wasn't I Dream of Jeannie, I Love Lucy, and Bewitched. It's at least 40 other ones that you don't remember. This whole setup reminded me of those type of shows. Granted, we know it's tongue-in-cheek and we notice what they're trying to set up. But even when you're trying to set up these things, I still feel the execution needs to be better. Not from the actors, just from the plot. The setting up just didn't seem right.
Yeah, it's like what they did was they were like, well, we're going to make sure we keep you in this level of mystery by blinding it over with the era piece and the rom-com of it all. So that, okay, you are entertained by this if you happen to like this. Yes. If you don't happen to like it, then it's kind of like you're looking like, what am I really looking for here in this show? You know what I'm saying? And I think that to Lucas's point, that's true. I it's 50-50. I know some people that were like, man, I love this. And I know some people was like, bro, like, is there more? Like somebody straight up was like, is there more to this that's worth me watching? And I told them, and we haven't brought up our thoughts on anything past the first episode, but we both agreed that we really wish that they had left all three of the episodes.
I'm about to say, not even wish. There's no way in heck this show should have been released without all three of the first episodes released.
Yeah.
If the goal is to grab you, I don't see you grabbing anybody that isn't already overly obsessed with the MCU after those first two episodes.
Exactly.
And again, I know we try not to compare shows because when we compare shows, it looks like we're picking on one show.
Yeah. Exactly.
And I'm going to compare shows here. And I'm going to compare a show on its own network. The Mandalorian hooked you on the first episode.
It did.
This does not hook you on the first two episodes.
Yeah.
It's this show is way too tailored for people who love the MCU. It is not tailored to anyone else. So if you're not someone who cares that, we may see a little glimmer of something in the background, or the thing is beeping. So what could that mean for? It's like you're trying to figure it out while watching the show. Only people obsessed with the MCU will take time to do that. People who don't care and people who are just tuning in because maybe they thought this would be an interesting show, I believe you lost all of them. And that's the problem. And that's why you release all 3 of those episodes.
Mm-hmm.
Even if you had to do a special, hey, WandaVision, first episode, hour and a half.
Yeah.
And then we give you everything else because you got to keep the intrigue going. And as we'll talk about it when we get to episode 2, it is very clear that episode 1 and 2 at one point was one episode.
One episode, yeah.
It is clear that was the case. And I'm just confused why they just didn't say, hey, well, I'm not confused why they did it because clearly they need the eyes on the streaming channel.
Yeah.
But you can't sacrifice good setup and storytelling just to attempt to keep an audience.
Look, now all I know is that, well, just for the sake of it, because some of you guys are kind of like, well, you guys are not talking about the things. And like, look, in the first episode, you know, one of the conversations that Vision was having while he was at his place of work or whatever, like he was kind of like talking with this one dude who's like, what exactly we do here? He's like, you know, we formulate this and that and the other. And I was like, oh, this is the inner workings of his own mind. Like this is where he was designed. This is what he was meant to do. But they had no inclination of what that actually meant. And then fast forward to when he actually does figure out, okay, he's got a boss and he's supposed to have like this moment where him and his boss will be having eaten at the dinner table, stuff like that. And then they have this weird, most cringy back and forth that I ain't seen since daggone Nick at Night days.
Yeah.
But one thing that they had in conversation was like, oh, she's from Sokovia, you know? And it's kind of like you guys that are, you know, Marvel fans, like, yo, you know, she is from Sokovia. Her and her brother Pietro are from there. This is where they were used by William Strucker with everything else. We'll get to that in the second episode. So it's not that we're leaving out. I've seen the different things that they've left there. It's just you have to cater to the whole entire thing for everybody. And it's like, I know that because I pick out stuff like that. I love dissecting stuff like that. But my wife doesn't. Like, she didn't know what the heck that was. Exactly. It just kind of was like, it was okay. That made no sense, but whatever, you know, she's from the UK. Cool. That's a funny little punchline joke when they left. Now, this is the thing that I loved about this episode. It's the only real thing I really loved about this episode. And I haven't talked to Lucas about it because Lucas is actually a huge fan of this genre. And that's the reason why I want to bring it up in this. Because I haven't heard anybody else talk about it. In this scene right here, where this whole entire time they were trying to figure out what was the big thing about the date. What was the big thing about the dinner party? And then the boss is like, look, who are you guys? What are you doing here? No, I think the wife even said it. Like, why haven't you had children? Why are you here? What's really going on? And like, neither one of them could really, you know, determine what that really was. They just kind of were really blank in the face. They were trying to ponder it. They didn't know how to answer it. And they just started to get more and more like drug out. And so then I think the boss like literally slammed his hand down. It's like, who are you? Or whatever. And then he starts to choke. And like, I was like, low key, like it started to get really dark. Because I was like, wait. Now, I know back in the day, you know, in the 50s and the 60s, you know, that was one of the shticks. It's like you get behind the person, like give them the Heimlich maneuver.
Do the Heimlich maneuver to get it out of it.
You save the life, you get out of it, and then you get the job that you want. I was looking at them jokers like, wait, what are they doing? They about to let this man die, straight up. And I was like, yo, this is dark. And this what made it so creepy, right? The wife was like, stop. Oh, stop. And then she's looking directly at Wanda. Because I was like, she's not looking at her husband. She's looking at Wanda. And it's evident that she knows that Wanda is allowing this to happen. And I was like, that's so freaking dope. Because it brings me back to the freaking Twilight Zone. It felt like that moment felt like a Twilight Zone moment. And there's a reason why I'm going to bring this up later. Because there's another moment in the second episode reminding me of a different genre as well. But I was just curious, like, Lucas, what do you think about that scene?
That was a real like film noir, dark type of setup. Which, when that scene happens, I'm assuming, unfortunately, because I shouldn't have assumed this, they were going to go deeper into that type of setup, which could be great for this show. Like, skip the sitcom setup a little bit and do the film noir where everything is happening. A David Lynch type of setup behind everything. Now, granted, that's what they're attempting to do in a cartoonish type of way, but this scene was not cartoonish at all. At all. And I love the close-up on the wife's face as she's saying it.
Yeah.
Because at that point, you're pulling the audience in the same way they pulled the audience in when they asked a question and you see both of them just stare off like, I don't know. Like, I'm full. It's like, as you say, a Twilight Zone, like they're caught up in something that they don't know what they're caught up in. I thought that was, out the first 2 episodes, that could possibly be the best scene out of the first 2 episodes. Just that setup, because that setup to me reveals way more than all the little Easter eggs that was shown in episode 1 and 2. That moment told you everything about, okay, this is the direction we're going to go with this show. Granted, later on, they pulled back from the darker direction that I hope they would have stuck with. But, we still got, 7 episodes left? 6 episodes left?
Yeah.
So maybe they venture back into that type of feel again.
Yeah. And the only reason why I bring that up is because, a lot of people don't accept the fact that, yes, Scarlet Witch or Wanda is one of the most powerful, mutants in the MCU. But think about her name, Scarlet Witch. She technically is the villain of this. And it's like, and Nadir and Lucas were the pioneers of calling your boy Grogu the villain of the story. And it's the same stick and setup for this. I don't know how far they're willing to go with this.
That's the key part.
I don't know. I really don't. And we've seen the first 3 episodes. We've seen certain things. And I'll bring up something in the second episode as well. But I love that because I was like, there's a uniqueness about that scene alone that kept me invested. Everything else about the episode, but that was the thing that I was like, oh, I want more of this. Give me more. Because, okay, Twilight Zone, when did that start? What was the era that started in? Isn't it this, like the 50s and 60s?
Same era.
So, I love that. I love that.
That's why, again, if they would have decided to dive into the Twilight Zone setup instead of the TV sitcom comedy setup, I would have loved it. Because you need that, because again, it's based off of who Wanda is. That's the key part here, is who is Wanda and the things you can do with that character. Vision, unfortunately, has never been an overly interesting character.
No.
Everything revolves around Wanda. And that could have been great. Granted, again, later on, the setups do pay off a little bit, but it still leaves you wanting more out of seeing this first episode. Like, what hooks you? That's a great moment, but is that a good enough moment to make you want to turn on the second episode? Or was this episode just to the point where you're like, yeah, I'm good. I don't need to see another one.
Exactly. Yeah, and that's a question we pose for you guys. We don't know. We just know what we're continuing to do. But if we weren't getting these episodes early and reviewing them and critiquing them, we might have a difference of opinion. We're just letting you know that straight up. So now let's go ahead and first episode, what do you give the rating for it?
C-. That's
fair enough. I was gonna say C+ or B-. It was enough to keep me intrigued. The second episode, not as much.
We both agree on the second episode.
But
like, it is this. The second episode is as close to torture TV as you can get. It was so bad, and that's why I feel like all 3 of these episodes had to be like one real episode, because this one it felt like a bunch of stuff on a cutting room floor that they could have gone without, and then they decided we're going to put it in there because we need another episode. We need another thing to set up, but you don't really need this episode at all.
No,
and it is pain. This is a painful from this scene here. Granted, it's an homage to the 50s shows where the couple slept in different beds, and But the moment you get to the point of the tree on the door and Vision being scared, and you're like, come on, man. We're not gonna play this angle. I don't find this interesting.
Yeah, it's so weird. It's so weird because the second episode, I was telling Lucas, I was like, Lucas, I fell asleep, dog. I straight up messaged him. I was watching it, and I was watching it midday, and I was like, man, I'm trying to get through it. So I get to the third episode, I was knocked out on the couch, and I was like, dang it, I gotta lock it the next 7. I ended up getting through it. I mean, the only thing I can say about it that saved it at all was Paul Bettany for me. It's like he definitely was the cringiest out of everything, but like I like his, what's the word? What is it about him? It's not necessarily his humor. It's like his dedication and timing to the way he was doing it.
It's the comedic timing that he has that works well in this episode.
Yeah.
Not necessarily the jokes, because most of the jokes are bad.
Yeah,
and
absolutely.
silly. But his timing on it is really good.
Yeah. Like, I actually was kind of like, this dude is... So, I think the other thing was back when did that movie come out? You remember A Knight's Tale?
Yes.
So, that was my first introduction to your boy, Paul Bettany. That was my first time seeing it. I was like, yo, this dude is hilarious.
Hey, that's America's first time introduction to him was in A Knight's Tale.
And I was like, I love like how wild he is, how charismatic he is, how all over the place he is. And that was him with gum in his chest.
Look here.
Whatever sense that made.
It made absolutely no sense. Oh my goodness. That was so he gets gum stuck and it makes him drunk. Granted, the scene, the magical scene, funny. That was funny just because of the setups. Again, the jokes weren't funny, but the setups were funny.
Yeah.
Of him attempting to use his real powers, which then brings me back to why you scared of a tree on knocking at the window, because you clearly are showing that you can fly.
Exactly.
And her having to make up, and this is why I think you say it feels way more like Bewitched, because she did a lot of the Bewitched things.
Yep.
Even though none of them could be explained well. I love the one, I don't know if it was the black guy that said, wait a minute, when Vision did a trick and then she popped a mirror behind him and they saw clapping, he said, I don't know if that's how mirror works. Like it was a good, like, just to bring up, like, wait a minute, you're just not going to keep on fooling me by doing things that actually don't make sense.
Yeah. It was definitely, that was the one that was kind of like, that doesn't explain the situation at all. And then your homeboy that was like, yo, that was my grandmama's piano.
Yeah.
And she just like tosses it and throws it or whatever. But this was also our first introduction to a character we can't talk about necessarily. But what did they call her in this character? I don't want to get her name wrong.
That's why I said nothing about this character, because
what was the name they gave her? I don't want to give it just this random black. It's gonna sound.
I will not give her a random black name.
Was it Geraldine?
Is it Geraldine? If it's not, we clearly just gave her a random black name. If that is a random 50s black name, it's Geraldine.
We're just gonna say she comes onto the scene first in the first episode, I believe. For a second, right?
Yeah, quick.
And I don't even remember what the context was, why she was even there. But in the second episode, it was kind of like she was kind of like talking with Wanda about like the backstage stuff and whether or not she was going to do the talent show. Because Wanda, while your boy Vision was going meeting the guys at the library talking through stuff, she was going with this little pet rally of this one ice queen that was just like, trying to lead the charge for everything. And that was where she met Geraldine or whatever.
Monica?
No. That ain't not yet. That's all I'm gonna say. we don't know her real name yet.
Okay.
You feel me? Yeah. So
because we're up here trying to guess the name.
Yeah, we know who she is.
It will reveal something in the episode that we're not gonna reveal. So that's Black lady in WandaVision. Ain't many of them, so you should know exactly who we're talking about.
Exactly. But in this one, that's where they kind of met. Now, this brings me to another scene that I actually did like as well. When Wanda was having this confrontation with the lady that was overseeing everything, she was like, you know what? I don't really like or trust you or your husband. I was like, dang, oh, she's getting all snappy up in her face. And at the time when they were having this conversation, they were arguing back and forth. Wanda was getting increasingly flustered. And then all of a sudden on the radio starts asking questions like, Wanda, are you okay? Wanda, who's doing this to you? And it's more and more getting louder and louder. And then all of a sudden, I feel like the lady snapped out of it. This is our first time really realizing that, okay, yeah, these people have no idea what's really happening to them. They have no control, not only over their body or over their consciousness of what's really happening to them. Because she was like, who are you? And what are you doing here? Why am I here? And it gets so bad that Wanda freaks out and the radio destroys, and then she busts the glass, and then you see blood on her hands. That's another sign of color, the second sign of color we actually see. The reason why I like that episode, or that part of the episode, is that felt like a Hitchcock moment, low key, in the way that they closed in on the radio first, and then they closed in on Wanda, and then changed the camera to the right, to the left a little bit, and then it ended on the crack with the. I was like, yeah, that was a Hitchcock moment. And so I love that. Like, I ain't gonna lie to you. I ain't gonna front. And even the third episode has another moment like that. I can't wait to talk about.
Yeah. We'll next week.
But the only other sign of something weird happening before that, and we talked about it. It's sad because they sacrificed the cheesiness and the campiness for the moments that really matter.
Yes.
The moment when Wanda went out to the lawn and she was looking, she heard something, and we honestly, when I listened to it the second time, I was like, yo, it sounds like something crashed when I heard it in my ears. But then when she went outside, it was like she saw this toy helicopter, and the helicopter had like what looked to be a sword on a oval, and it was in complete color, red. And you know, it was up until that time that her neighbor interacted with her, and then she kind of just let it go. Later on in the episode, after the foolishness happens and ensues, you know, her and Vision have this moment. It's really a little cute moment or whatever. I'll try to bring it up again right here, where it's kind of like, you know, you got to prepare for the baby. And she asks him, like, Vision, is this really happening? And then this goes back to what Lucas was saying, like, yo, you literally can destroy anybody if you really want to. And all of a sudden, he's like, man, I swear that the tree again, I'm going to pull it up by its roots. I'm like, all right, bet. Finally. Thank you. Thank you for saying that. So they go outside, and there's another Hitchcock moment.
Yep.
They go and they walk out to the street, and I was like, yo, this feels so creepy. And like, they look in the distance, and all of a sudden, you can barely see it. And I think it was shot well, too. Honestly, like, the shot was actually done really well. The plate on the sewer just slides out, and you see somebody coming up with bees all around them and everything, but you can see there's a sword emblem on the back of the guy. And you're like, he looks and turns it down really sharply, but you can never see the actual face. And I was like, I love that moment. And it's like they just kind of like cut, and it rewinds back to the moment she asked the question.
Yep.
And then you don't hear it again. And it's like, evidently, she's not allowing this to happen. Whether it's subconsciously or consciously, she's not allowing it to happen. But this is another moment where it starts to go back into color. All of a sudden, every time she makes a change or has an emotional reaction, color comes out. And I don't know what that means, if things are going to start getting more and more pushed to modern day as she starts having emotional reactions or trying to change things back. that's what all I can really think of. But I don't know. I like that moment. Those 2 moments are the only thing that saved this episode for me personally. Everything else.
The weird part is it's the structure of these episodes that feels so off.
Yeah.
It's not the performances, it's not the direction, it's the structure. It just feels off, and not off because of the Easter eggs and the plotting, and it just feels off. Again, as Sam said, we're used to seeing either films like this or great television shows from yesteryear that had these exact same setups, but it didn't feel as off as this one does.
Yeah.
Like, again, but I think it's because, and I hate to compare with other Marvel shows, but other Marvel shows before the changeover happened, they normally use the first 2 episodes to set up everything else, or at least the first episode, and it set up what was normally the big moments in the second episodes, whether it be Daredevil with I think it's the hallway scene that happened in the second episode of the first season, like, or Luke Cage. I just remember a big cotton mouth episode, something happening in the second episode. Of that, like, that's what you normally get, and that's why I said I feel this is the same setup, and why these 2 first episodes are actually one episode. Where they split up into this sitcom style. But because you do that, I think you lose a lot when you transfer from one episode to the next, and instead of having a continuous episode. Because with a continuous episode, you can piece things together easily. But when this is just standing alone as one episode, it structurally just feels so off. Yeah, I can agree. And the foreshadowing that happens, because clearly I don't know much about comics, but the moment you said, oh, they showed her being pregnant, you know exactly what's next. Yeah, exactly. But you also, let me finish it. Well, go ahead. But you also know what they're setting up, and that has been my issue with Marvel in general. At that point, she becomes pregnant. I know you're sacrificing the rest of this show for what that baby or things lead to. That's all I'll say. Because I'm not giving up anything from third episode, because unless you're crazy, you saw in the trailer that it was 2 cribs. Like, they showed that to you in the trailer. You know, if you know anything about Marvel, you know who the babies are, and you know what the babies grow up to do and what team they grow up to join. Yeah, we are keeping this tight-lipped, and again, there's something that happens in the 3rd episode, honestly, that changes my perception of what the show is capable of. Yes, 100% so. And it's sad that I can't talk about it No. We'll talk about it next week, but let's just say that even if you are like me and you absolutely did not like the first 2 episodes, watch the 3rd. The 3rd puts the show in focus, and that's why we said from the beginning, Sam said from the beginning, it should have dropped all 3 episodes. Damn, that 3rd episode puts this show in so much perspective that it's gonna be interesting to you after that. Yeah, for sure. And again, this goes back to a reason why I put this picture up is because Wanda has always been a dark character. Look, like the very first moment that we see of her when she got her powers in this post-credit sequence, she literally crushes all these boxes. Like, what I'm hoping that they do with this is they really do go for it. They don't hold anything back. They don't Disneyfy it. They don't marvel it up. They make it as raw as they can, because this is on TV. This is on a streaming service. This is not on, in the movies. They really can go for it. That's one of the benefits to me of these shows, is that you can take it to places that you can't go in the movie theater. But again, there were a couple other Easter egg things I promised Lucas I'd bring up. In the 2nd episode, when they started to change back into color, there's a scene right here. You can look to the left on the wall, which you could barely make out, but it didn't make any sense. And so then you take that same exact picture, and then you put this up here. This is the picture in the asylum
that Strucker had Wanda and Pietro here to give them or awaken their powers with the reality stone or the Tesseract. I can't remember which one. I can't remember.
I think it was a Tesseract.
But either way, that's just a small little Easter egg that I didn't even notice. I give them credit for doing it. It's just this wasn't the episode to do that with me with. They should have did that in the second episode or something else, because I honestly I would have never looked at the second episode again, other than going on YouTube and seeing those two scenes that I really liked. I would watch the first episode again before I watch the second episode. And that's not shade, it's just my personal perspective on it and the way it made me feel and going and watching it. I do think that the show itself, the production value is actually really high. It looks like from a cinematography standpoint, they actually spared no expense in some of the shots. And the detail, the attention to detail for the eras, they really are dedicated to it. So I give them all the props for it. It's just not my cup of tea that I want to recall that. I can go and look at Nick and Night. I can go and, watch whatever I want to now, or try to classic movies or whatever. So it is some really good ideas here, but it's not going to catch this theme that you want until the next episode. That's what I have to say.
Yes, that's a good way to put it. It's not that good of a show in the first 2 episodes. Hopefully it picks up, because even without mentioning anything in the 3rd episode, it still has stuff to prove after that 3rd episode to make it something that you may want to continuously watch. People are praising it because they say it's weird, it's different. And anyone who says that, I question, have you ever seen Doom Patrol or Umbrella Academy or The Boys? Don't tell me this is weird and different. It really isn't. It's weird and different for Marvel.
Yeah.
But it's not so far out there. I think people thought it would be more trippy than they're getting so far. But people who love MCU and will make every excuse humanly possible for any project that they release, this is the greatest. Oh my God, I just can't believe they do all of this weird stuff. No one else has done this. And I'm like, yeah, you just don't watch TV. And I hate, again, the goal is not to compare it, but when you look at 2 shows, guess what? Doom Patrol is literally set in the same time period.
Yep.
The same time period.
Yeah, there's some things they do in the 2nd season of Doom Patrol
that is unbelievable. No Marvel show ever.
If you're trying to compare, you don't need to try.
But even Umbrella Academy, same thing. It's just about the setups. I don't know if Disney hamstringed this by making it 30 minutes per episode to stick with this sitcom theme that they felt the need to go with. Or is it just that the pandemic hit and you needed to stretch it out? Maybe that's it.
I really do think that. I think that plays all the hand in it, because based on, I counted, based on how many episodes each week they're trying to roll this out, and this was March the 19th when Falcon and Winter Soldier come out. When this ends, it'll literally be the next week will be Falcon and Winter Soldier. They literally sacrificed that to stretch it out all the way to that point. And I wouldn't have personally done that, but Disney, they got it.
But it's also they're also showing us why these first 2 episodes really showed me why Falcon and Winter Soldier should have been the first series. It should have been the first, and because it was supposed to be the first series.
So the reason why I don't know if I can agree yet is because of, I have to talk to you off camera about that, because it's something it's something in the 3rd episode that lead me to believe something that I can't really talk about. So I'm just
let's just say I believe both shows set up something different for the MCU.
Yeah,
that's the best way to put it.
Yeah,
because again, the original thing was Falcon and Winter Soldier was the first show, and it was the first show for a reason. And then it was going to be WandaVision. But WandaVision, again, I think because you can sacrifice a little more with them by cutting these into 30-minute episodes versus Falcon and Winter Soldier, which have to be hour-long episodes.
You would hope.
There's no in hell you're making those 30-minute episodes. If they do, I'm done with no. No. They got to do better. They had to do better. But again, first 2 episodes, not the best thing in the world. I give the second episode. I gave the first episode a C-. I give the second episode a D.
I knew he was gonna say that.
No. And as Sam said, Sam fell asleep during it. The second episode was so bad, I pushed through it and fell asleep at the beginning of a 3rd episode. Because it was just so hard to get through that second episode.
Yeah, only thing I can think of that I did bring up in this episode is the other commercial. It had
that's the Hydra. Was it the Hydra commercial?
Yeah, it was the Hydra commercial. It's like a Hydra watch, but it was made by Strucker.
Yeah,
and I was kind of like, oh, that's cute. You know, I like it. That's dope. I didn't know what that meant, and I still don't know where this is going. But I really am hoping that this gets more twisted and more dark as things progress. Because, I mean, that's the character. Like, please don't sacrifice.
She is a villain. Let's please remember that, people. She is a villain. She is evil. I understand they've done everything to make her likable. Teaming up with Cap, doing all this other stuff. But in the end, Wanda is not supposed to be a good guy.
Nope.
And if they dig deep into those dark roots, it could be a great show. But will they marvel it up?
I don't know.
Vision continue? See, that's it. Will they marvel it up? Will Vision continue? Will Wanda finally find out why she's pregnant? Tune in next week. Like, if you're gonna go campy, they should have went Batman campy. That would be awesome.
Yeah, I'm gonna predict this. They are definitely gonna have a Full House episode. I predict that.
Yeah, it's the 80s.
I predict that. So
Full House, maybe Perfect Strangers.
Yeah, they might as well bring her sisters involved in it too.
Hey.
Just go ahead and go for it. Go for broke. Anyway, you guys, hope y'all enjoyed our spoiler-filled review of WandaVision episode 1 and 2. Oh, my rank, I read for that a C-. Or a C. I didn't care for it. I wish I could give you my grade for the 3rd episode.
Hey.
And then we'll go from there. But
you can give the grade, you just can't talk about it. What's wrong with giving a grade?
Nah, I ain't even doing that.
You can talk about it, but you can give a grade if you would like to.
We'll wait.
Anyway, D-Rail Lindo, when he was trying to get those 2 white guys on that other show to say the N-word. You want to say your grade, Sam? Say it. You know what your grade is for episode 3.
Anywho, we're gonna go. Hope you guys enjoyed this full spoiler discussion, and we will see you guys next time on Monday.
Same bat time, same bat channel.
Yep. Peace, guys. You're weird.